Hello, welcome back. Today I am talking about the principle in law of assumption called no one to change but self. This is a game changer. I promise it will change your life as it has changed mine and continues to when you apply this wonderful teaching, no one to change but self. Stick around. My name is Hedley Derenzie and I am a qualified life coach, adult educator and author. I'm also passionate about the teachings of law of assumption as originally taught by Neville because it is the stories that create our life. So if you want to change your life, you really have to change the stories that you're telling. And if you want a better quality life, then you need to start telling better quality stories. And that is why I'm here, because I am passionate about telling myself better stories and I want to help you to do the same. If you would like further support, I am available for one-on-one coaching and also email coaching. My contact details are in the box below, so feel free to reach out to me. Hey, no one to change but self. I know I say this about so many of Neville's teachings, but really this one is a game changer. This really will change your life as it has mine. It is not necessarily the easiest teachings to kind of get a grip of because we have been so conditioned to do the opposite, as in change everybody else but ourselves. However, when this becomes the new mantra in our life, no one to change but self, no one to change but self, no one to change but self, it gets easier and easier, and you'll find that the results become quicker and quicker, and also they are more sustaining over the long term. And that's ultimately what we want with this work. So let's sort of go back to the basics of the law of assumption, the principles on which these teachings are based, and that is that consciousness is the one and only reality, and it is our consciousness that is creating our reality in terms of whatever it is that we are imagining over a persistent period of time will eventually get reflected back in reality. And why is that? I am not a quantum physicist by any stretch. I have certainly done a lot of work with, say, the teachers such as Dr. Joe Dispenza, and there was a movie many years ago called What the Bleep, and that movie had, it was actually called What the Bleep Do We Know? I highly recommend going and finding that movie. I think it's on YouTube actually. And that was all about sort of the quantum nature of things. And that really helped open my eyes to see reality in a whole new way, which is that the things that we think are real are not necessarily real because they're just, it's just kind of particles just moving at incredibly high speed. And that what we see basically in the world around us is just space. Basically space is, or 3D is made up of space. As you can see, I really am not a quantum physicist. I don't know what I'm talking about. I just know that it's real and it makes sense. And when I hear it, I go, yes, that is true. So I would recommend going and looking at the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza and also watching the movie What the Bleep, and just Google quantum physics and see what this universe is made up of. And it really just like electrons and protons and subatomic particles and all that jazz. So in short, reality is just the particles of light being reflected back to us. And what creates those particles of light, those reflections, is the consciousness that we're pushing out, which is then coming back to us. So with that in mind, that's like that's like the 3-minute breakdown of quantum physics of what the universe is made of. It's hilarious. So no one to change but self. So that applies to the people in our reality. So people are just reflections of consciousness. I know that sounds really weird. That sounds really hard to sort of get your head around. Because we are so conditioned to look outside of us at our reality and to believe that what we are seeing is real and that what is in our minds is imagined, because we are so conditioned by that, it can be a bit of a mind bender to flip that on its head, which is what we need to do with these teachings to really grasp them and to get the maximum benefit from them. Because as long as we're seeing people separate to us and outside of us, we're going to want to go outside of us and change them if there are things in the people that we see that we don't like. And I'm sure we've all had experiences with having somebody in front of us and not liking what we see or hear, and we want them to change it. So we say something, we're like, hey, I don't like what you're doing here, or I want you to be like this, I want you to do more of this. We have a tendency to just look outside of us and to instantly, as soon as we see something that we don't like, to go outside and try and change that thing. Again, I use the analogy of the mirror. It is like going up to the mirror and banging on the mirror and going, hey, I don't like the reflection that's coming back at me, not realizing that we're actually the ones influencing the reflection. So when it does come to people, so the term no one to change but self is really saying that whatever we're seeing in our reality is simply a reflection of our consciousness. So if someone is coming into our consciousness and they're behaving in a way that we don't like, what we need to do is, rather than go to them and try and change them because they are just the hologram, what we need to do is actually take a step back and go within us and look at what is the consciousness that I am projecting and pushing out that is then getting reflected back in the behavior of this person. Now, this is easier said than done, because a lot of the times our consciousness derives from the stories that we're telling in our subconscious. And often we don't know what those stories are, except we do now, because now we have the wonderful feedback of our reality. So if you want to look at the quality of your consciousness in terms of the relationships with the people in your life, simply look at the people of your life, look at how they're behaving, and then ask yourself, is this favorable or unfavorable? Is my consciousness of high quality or low quality based on how this person is behaving? Now, I like to focus on a specific example, and for me, because the toughest area for me, and I say that without wanting to affirm that story, is relationships, is love relationships. That's the area that I'm working on in my life, because that's where I have the most unfavorable stories running. They run deep in my subconscious, and I am working with those there is no try. I am working on changing those stories. But let's work with relationships, and in specifically a specific person. So no one to change but self. So we're going to apply this to a specific person, and that in this case is going to be a romantic partner. And this is just a recent example of mine. So earlier this year I was dating a guy. This is before I found Law of Assumption. This guy actually led me to discover Law of Assumption, so I am internally grateful to this man for behaving the way he did, because it really brought me to my knees and then to the Law of Assumption. And so I am very, very grateful for this person. But what he actually did was ghost me. I have never been ghosted before, and I want to do another video on that, because there is so much on ghosting that I would love to get into. But he basically just disappeared. Absolutely disappeared. No warning, no issues, absolutely nothing. I was kind of blindsided, quite devastated. I thought we had something kind of good there. And then he just disappeared. And so I had to apply the law of teachings, no one to change but self. And this is where it can get really challenging, is when you're kind of like looking at this reflection and it's a really shitty reflection and there's nowhere to go but self. I mean, you can go out and blame them, but that doesn't get you anywhere, because that doesn't change the story. And I knew that I wanted to change this story. So it took a little while, but I was able to see how, and it did take a while. It took quite a few weeks, or possibly even a month or so, for me to actually get this, no one to change but self. So I knew of this teaching, but then to apply it and to really get it, it took a while. But I remember the point where I realized that in this relationship, way back before this had happened, I had ghosted myself. And what I mean by that is, I knew this guy wasn't right for me, but I overrode my feelings and thoughts, and because I wanted it to work, and I realized that I had disappeared in the relationship, that I kind of ignored myself. I wasn't paying attention to myself. I had completely disregarded myself. I had basically ghosted myself and disappeared on myself for the sake of kind of keeping this relationship going. That was massive for me. I have never known that before. And since then, what I was able to do was to come back to self and realize that it was me that needed changing, not him. And that was very liberating for me. So when you can actually look at somebody and go, this is my reflection, they are simply reflecting a story that I have about myself back to me, what it does is it immediately re-empowers you. I don't even know if that's a word, but what you're essentially doing is you're going from a state of feeling disempowered to feeling empowered, because you are no longer a victim to your situation. You're no longer a victim to this person and their behavior, and you no longer need anything from them, at which point they often turn around. And it was very interesting because I did bump into this guy again, and he was all like, hi, and I was just like, like, whatever. It was kind of wonderful. So when you get to a place where you don't need anything from them is often the place, the time when they actually come back and reflect that back to you, because they are just a reflection. So no one to change but self. This is such a short video, and so I am just going to leave it there. But I'm going to do many more on these, because No One to Change But Self is such a profound and powerful teaching that it deserves a lot more time and attention. But what I would just leave you with at this point is, if there is somebody in your life right now that is behaving in an unfavorable way, and I'm not saying in an abusive way or anything like that, that's a whole other story. If that's the case, get out of there. But if it's just unfavorable behavior that you don't like, rather than looking at that person and looking at reaching out and saying what they need to change, just stop, take a breath, go back, repeat the mantra, no one to change but self, and then ask yourself, what is the consciousness, what's the story that you're telling about yourself and about them? And just see what the answer that comes back at you. I think you'll be interested and perhaps quite surprised by the answer, and then you can work with that. And you don't even need to go outside of them, because what happens is when you change your consciousness, again, they will reflect that change back to you. No one to change but self. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to share it with family and friends, or anyone that you might feel might find it useful. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, I'd love you to subscribe to my channel. There is a little box somewhere below there. Please feel free to do that, and I will see you next time. Bye.